Hey, greetings, campers, lovers of music, theater, film, and television, members of the resistance, fighters against tyranny and oppression, fighters for religious, sexual, and political freedom. This is the World According to Yoni. I am Yoni Martin, and I will be your guide through this motherfucking hellhole most of us feel like we've been dropped down pretty much on our heads. Until last night's presidential debate, if one can call it that, I had written an enormous amount to present on today's show. But that kind of went down the toilet yesterday, which is a shame, because I was going to talk about things like the Breonna Taylor murder, where only one cop was indicted in this case, and it wasn't a cop who shot her, and he was indicted for reckless endangerment. The rest of them were let off the hook. Now, here's a question. The Taylor family was paid millions of dollars in restitution for Breonna's murder. So why is it, if they were willing to do that, that only this one cop was indicted? If you can figure that out, do me a favor, let me know, because I have no fucking idea. In any event, I have been trying not to be disgusted by what happened and to do something that's getting harder to do for most of us, and that is maintain my sanity. I don't know how to do that anymore. I mean, last week, if you remember, if you listened to or watched last week's show, at the end, I promised today's show was going to be lighter, more fun, frothy, full of humor, jokes, and I don't know if I'm going to live up to that. However, I am blessed today to have as my guest Michael Cerveris. Now, for those of you who don't know Michael, he is, he's got to be considered Broadway royalty. He has 4 Tony nominations to his name, 2 wins. He has starred opposite, most of Broadway's leading ladies, including Patti LuPone, Audra McDonald, Kristen Chenoweth. He created the role of Tommy in The Who's Tommy. And in the 2005 stunning revival of Stephen Sondheim's masterpiece, Sweeney Todd, Michael played the title role. He remade it and recreated it in his own image. It was an amazing performance. So I am honored, privileged, and thrilled to be able to say, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, Michael Cerveris. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Actually, this is I've waited for this for a while.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
I said it in my introduction for you, but at this point, I think you have reached status of Broadway royalty.
Well, I appreciate that. I wish there were Broadway to be royal about at the moment, but
Yeah, don't we all?
yeah.
That, you know what? I was going to hold this question back, but by saying that, I have had an argument with equity for years because I
with
don't
with American Equity or
yes, American Equity,
right,
Actors Equity Association, of which we are both members.
right.
Um, because I don't understand why they don't release more Broadway shows on video. They've been very successful with the ones that they have, and it hasn't affected attendance, on shows that are even still going on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I agree with you. It's not entirely Equity's decision. There are a lot of other unions, the musicians union and the stagehands union, and then the rights holders of the various properties. So it gets to pretty quickly be a very complicated thing. But certainly equity, is a big part of that equation, and their philosophy traditionally has been that they're protecting their members by being very strict about the ways that it can be used. I agree with them that if money is being made, the actors certainly deserve a significant part of that. But in the cases where money isn't really being made, and that's the kind of thing that it's a very slippery slope that we've entered now, especially with pandemic times, because so much is people are attempting to do what they can via streaming things, and it gets into this gray area. Like if something exists only in a transmitted medium, is it actually theater anymore? If you're doing a reading of a play, but you're only doing it on Zoom, should it be, a SAG issue? Is it even an equity issue anymore? But my feeling, and this is maybe because I grew up in the kind of bootleg music era, I don't think things like that cut into the revenues of shows. I think they actually enhance them. I think, the only people who care to have a bootleg copy of something are the people who are going to buy a ticket to it anyway, for the most part, if they possibly could. And having access to past performances and things, I think would be a really valuable, positive thing. So I'm kind of, I think I'm a little bit of an outlier in my profession. That I tend to think I would like to see more of that myself. It will always be a source of deep frustration to me that our producers didn't manage to film Fun Home in the
what
in the
waste. I mean,
yeah, I really think so. And the frustrating thing is, footage does exist of it. It's like so many shows. It is at the Lincoln Center Library for
I was going to
Performing
say
Arts.
everything's at the Lincoln Center Library.
Yeah, well,
So,
not everything, but an enormous amount. But it's very difficult to get in to see it because you have to have a very specific reason and be approved, and you can only watch it the one time. And so that's really not what we're talking about. And the footage does exist for Fun Home, for example, because they shot the entire show from 4 cameras because the show was in the round for the commercials and B-roll and that sort of stuff. So there exists an actually pretty good quality film of it in pieces that was only edited together for the commercial, but it still exists and it's in the producer's possession. And I tried at the beginning of the pandemic, when I saw that there was a production from Chicago of Fun Home that was going to be streaming live, I was like, why can't we get our filmed version out there? And I was told that, it would cost too much, and that was that. So, there's short-sightedness, and
I mean, that's the exact argument I've been having for years with other equity members as well. What are we protecting? The movie of Hedwig did not exactly bite into the last stage production of it, did it?
No.
No.
And the positive side of what equities and all the unions are trying to do is protect their members from being taken advantage of, and that needs to be done because producers will film things and you'll never see them again, and they'll be used for raising money on the backs of the actors and for doing all kinds of stuff at the expense of the actors and the performers. So there is a degree of protection that needs to happen, but it just sort of, I think, is easier for them to just make one blanket statement and that's kind of it, and then they move on. And I think it's unfortunate because I I would like to see more things that I was in available for people to see, and I would like to
Those
see
things I
things
was
that
into.
I haven't gotten to or
You know,
loved. Yeah,
I did a production of uh, Angels in America, and it kills me that I don't have that. You
yeah.
know, it was a great production.
I mean,
So
at the same time, I do feel that no filmed version of a stage thing is really going to capture what the theatrical experience is, which is an argument for why it doesn't diminish the value of the theatrical event. Um, and I get the argument that, well, it diminishes what it actually was, and that's true. I mean, watching, no matter how good a film you have of Hedwig from our B-roll, it will not recreate the experience of having been
being
there.
there live, of course.
Yeah, but especially in times like these, it's sort of all that we would be left with. I saw this; it was so great. Just a couple days ago, the Wise Children Theatre Company from England they sequestered the entire company. And did you see this
I didn't see
production?
this one, but they've been doing it with a number of things.
Yeah, and they filmed it, multi-camera live from the Bristol Old Vic, and in order to kind of preserve some of this the specialness of a live theatrical event, it wasn't streamed and like available to watch for several days after or anything. It was like you bought a ticket for Friday night and you saw the performance on Friday night, and they did like a week or so of performances for different territories, um, and it was so wonderful. And I mean, they were able to do just a full production. Because they had sequestered, they were all healthy and safe, and so they were able to do the show like you would do the show. And when there was a love scene, the people kissed and people held hands and people had danced in partners,
Just like it
and
used to be.
just like it used to be. And it was so moving, and it made me realize even more than I thought I already knew how much I missed that experience, but even as an audience person. But I was just like teary-eyed through the whole first half of it, just at seeing this and being part of a live moment. Even if I couldn't be there in person, I knew that across the ocean it was happening, and I was so grateful to them and all the American theater companies who kind of helped make it possible. So that kind of stuff is possible. And in a time like this, yeah, it's not the same thing, but it's not nothing.
Well, I remember when they did the Nathan Lane version of The Man Who Came to Dinner, and PBS aired it live.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
I went out and I got it on DVD immediately after.
Yeah. It used to be, when I was growing up, you used to see periodically, there was like, what was it called? It was, well, I mean, there's been Live from Lincoln Center, that kind of thing.
Right.
And but when I was younger too, I mean, even before I was born, like the Texaco Theater and that kind of stuff, they would do live stage productions, and that was pretty
everything. I mean,
special.
Sidney Lumet, that's where he cut his teeth,
Mm.
directing those. And because
Yeah.
I said because he was the first film director I worked with, and God, what a genius he was. But
Yeah.
I'm going to jump all over the place with you because your career
jumps all over the place.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, you are this musical theater hero at this point because you've done so many incredible things. I mean, your Sweeney Todd was very different production, obviously, but you were wonderful, and you brought something to it that it was very different than what Len Cariou did at the beginning, and that what George Hearn did. And then when you guys did with Patti LuPone that celebration
birthday, yeah.
with you and Hearn working off each other, that was hysterically funny. I mean,
It was, I mean, that was such a thrill for me to get to do, because I had seen the original production of Sweeney in previews. It was the first Broadway show I ever saw. And it was really seeing Len Cariou in that show that made me think that maybe there were parts and shows in musical theater for me. Before that, I had done summer stock and stuff, but I really didn't think I was going to have any kind of career in musical theater. I mostly thought of myself as a serious dramatic actor and, or a rock and roll guy, and that was kind of it. And suddenly here was this amazing kind of Shakespearean performance from Len Cariou in the middle of this dark, very funny, twisted musical. And so, I saw him, I saw George Hearn, and for me, they, that was Sweeney Todd. So getting to play opposite them, and I got to do the same thing, a similar thing. I sang Pretty Women with Len Cariou. I played Sweeney and he played the judge for another of the Sondheim birthday concerts. Yeah, I don't know that they filmed it. I think that his 80th birthday we celebrated about 90 times. So
yeah, was that the one where Tom Lehrer came out and played too? Because I know one of his birthdays.
Yeah, I don't remember which one that was, but yeah.
The concept of Tom Lehrer and Stephen Sondheim having gone to camp together as kids and being friends is mind-blowing to me.
And yet makes sense in some ways too.
Yeah, it does. You have done, you've done a lot of Sondheim. You did Passion. I saw Passion, it was either the night before it opened or the 2 nights before it opened. And I don't remember how the hell I got first row seats, but, it was very worth it for Marin Maisie, especially at the beginning of the show. But you not only got to do Passion, was it at the Kennedy Center? I'm trying to remember.
First time was at the Kennedy Center with Judy Kuhn and Rebecca Luker, and then pardon?
Not too shabby.
No, not at all. And then in Chicago at the Ravinia Festival with Patti LuPone and Audra McDonald, and that was the production that we then filmed later for Great Performances at Lincoln Center, or Live from Lincoln Center. And I did actually get to do it one time for sorry, my dog is scratching.
My dog would be doing the same thing. I've seen that dog before.
Yes, that's Evangeline. You want to come say hi? She does.
Hi, Evangeline.
Come say hi.
She looks like a cousin to one of my dogs.
Yeah.
It was the Funhouse thing you did that you had.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So,
but I did also get to do Passion with the original cast. Jerry, they did a one-night reunion concert for God's Love We Deliver, this wonderful organization in New York that feeds a lot of people. And Jerry Shea had left the business and so wasn't going to do it. So I got to do it with Marin and Donna and all of the rest of the original company. So it was for one night I could kind of pretend that I had been in it from the beginning.
Yeah, that was, I didn't see it, but when I read about it, I was going like, oh man, you're like with everybody, it's, what you did, the Apple Tree and the encore concerts with Kristen Chenoweth.
Yeah. Yes,
we have in common because I've done the Apple Tree as well.
Oh, did you play the snake?
So,
did you play that character?
No, I played Adam.
You played Adam. Oh, cool.
Many moons ago. Yeah.
Awesome.
I directed it. So.
Oh, cool.
Fun.
Yeah, I used to tell people I was kind of the go-to diva escort for a while because I got to work with all of these extraordinary women.
Yeah, you really have. I'm trying to think of who on the Broadway stage have you not worked opposite? There are a few.
Well, I haven't. I've done benefits and things with Kelly O'Hara, but we've never actually gotten to work together. That's and she's lovely, and we're good friends, but we've never gotten to actually to do a show together. yeah, there aren't, uh, especially of the old guard.
Yeah.
I kind of, I got
Well,
around.
Patti LuPone, Audra McDonald, right there. You're
Donna Murphy.
yeah,
Yeah.
Donna Murphy, Marin Mazzie. It's amazing. I mean, but
Mm.
I got to tell you, you've got a set of pipes like you're the Ema Sumac of male singers.
I'm putting that on my resume.
What is your how large is your range? Because
I don't know precisely. I suppose that's the kind of thing you should know, but I've never been that kind of uh, singer musician who really you know took note of all of that stuff. I just I know that I added about 5 notes to my range when I was learning Tommy, because I couldn't really sing it all entirely when I started. And
because that's what I was watching some of the tapes of Tommy, and I'm watching you hitting notes that are astronomically high, and then going back to Sweeney Todd, and where you're
yeah,
deep baritone, and it was.
although Sweeney's actually really rangy. I mean, everybody, including me, thinks of it as this heavy bass baritone kind of role, but there's actually it's pretty rangy too. It actually gets up higher than you think sometimes. But it is interesting the way I've noticed when I get into a show and I'm doing it for a while, and I've been lucky a number of shows that I've gotten to do for a long stretch, I think my voice actually changes. And when I was singing Sweeney, it would have been very hard for me to do Tommy at that time, and vice versa. It's sort of, grooves get worn in your vocal cords when you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I guess maybe by virtue of having a stretch of time for a while where I was doing musical after musical after musical for quite a while, I was really kind of, stretching it out and exercising it a lot all the time. And singing in more recent times has been primarily with my band now, and doing more of that kind of stuff. And that music it's a whole different kind of singing, but it's pretty all over the map.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know
Pitch-wise.
you are a musician as well as an actor singer, that you play guitar, you have a band. That's about all I know about it. If you're, I mean,
Well,
it,
I grew up playing music, and my dad is a classical musician and university professor. So I had a very specific idea of who should call themselves a musician. To me, it was somebody who had dedicated their life to it and studied theory and could sight read and everything else. And that wasn't me. I was much more of a self-taught kind of musician.
oh, you and I have so much in common. Look.
Yes, we do. But I hesitated, and still kind of am slow to call myself a musician, even though I've earned a living doing it for a while now. But I played guitar in a lot of rock bands in junior high, and had bands in New York. When we were doing Tommy, Alice Ripley and I had a band called Lame that used to play. We'd finish our Saturday night show at Tommy and then go down to Chenet Club where Jeff Buckley had a residence at that time, and we would play from midnight till 2 a.m. We would play after our 2 shows on a Saturday at Tommy, and then get up and do a Sunday matinee.
Theater hours, great.
Yeah. And I played guitar with Bob Mould from Husker Du and Sugar. I was his touring guitar player back in '98, and so I had a big loud guitar rock, punk rock phase, and then more recently, the band I have now is called Loose Cattle, and it's more an Americana kind of hybrid of country and folk and a bit of blues and southern rock kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at these days.
I have to ask you this. You did, what was it, like one season of the TV series Fame?
Yeah, yeah,
Ian, you were Ian where?
I was.
I have to ask this question. Was the hair yours?
I understand you asking the question, and yes, it was, and probably the product and the teasing and the blow drying that was required for that Duran Duran kind of mid late 80s look is
Yeah.
probably why I have the hairstyle I have today.
Yeah, I wonder because I was sitting there going, okay, I've seen you perform in wigs, Hedwig, Tommy,
Most everything.
yeah, the Fun House,
Yeah.
but seeing that it was like, wow,
Yeah. Yeah, it looked like more of a wig than some of my wigs do.
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, but it was all me.
Oh my God. I was reading you went to Phillips Exeter Academy, where I feel like I should put my pinky up in the air for that one. Because I remember when I'm a little older than you, but when I was in high school, they had a summer program, and they took women into the summer program. So a girlfriend of mine went to Phillips Exeter, and I went
wow.
to spend a night up there, and I was like, wow, this is a classy place.
Yeah, I mean it's like a small college.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, I wasn't looking. I grew up in West Virginia, and I was not looking. I wasn't one of those kids who was dying to get out of his small town and get to the big city. And I was very happy in West Virginia and really loved it there, and still love it there. But my parents were kind of concerned that I didn't seem to be working all that hard in school. I was getting good grades, but I was the classes moved slowly enough that I was able to do my homework during my classes during the day. So I'd come home with no homework to do because I'd done it already. And they wanted me to be more challenged, and the opportunity to go to Exeter came up, and I kind of, stumbled along into it with no thought that A, I would ever get into a place like this, B, that we could ever afford to go to a place like this. And so, but I thought, well, I'll do the application. It sounds kind of fun. It looks like an amazing place. And I'll write these essays, and that'll be cool. And that'll be that. And then, I kept passing different hurdles. Like I, had the interview, and then our family drove up to Exeter to go see the place. And have another interview up there. And I had the same reaction that you did. It's like, this place is incredible, and the facilities are amazing. The theater is, better than most of the theaters I worked in New York for the first few years of my career. But after going to see it, I thought, well, that was cool, but I'll never see it again, because I'm never going to get in, and I'm never going to be able to afford it. And I did get in. I always wondered whether it was because I was from West Virginia, and it was just sort of they needed to satisfy a geographic, yeah. And they have this great need-blind application admissions program where if they accept you, then they figure out how to make it possible for you to go. And I had scholarships and loans and a financial aid job while I was there. I worked in the post office there, and and I am so grateful, because it was such a great educational opportunity for me. And also the theater teacher there, B. Rodney Marriott, who was connected to Circle Rep in New York at the time. He was the literary manager of Circle Rep also. He really was a key figure in my development and my becoming more serious about pursuing acting as something more than a hobby. And he had a lot to do with why I ended up applying to go to Yale undergraduate too, because he had been there.
He became a real slacker and went to Yale.
Yeah, it was just I applied to 12 different places, everything from Boston College to Oberlin to Northwestern, sort of the gamut between conservatory programs and just regular old liberal arts programs that had a good theater
Not
program.
Emerson?
What's that?
Not Emerson?
No, I didn't apply to Emerson. I don't know why. I wasn't super on my radar, I guess, at the time. No, but I didn't. I know so many people that went there and really loved it. So, in fact, Emily Skeggs, who was in Fun Home, went to Emerson, and Joel Perez also from Fun Home. But
There are a lot of us Emersonians all over the place.
yeah. But I ended up going to Yale because I wasn't sure that I wanted to pursue a career as an actor. I had the example of my parents, who were both in the arts, and had chosen to go more the academic route. And so I had a healthy respect for the sacrifices and the challenges of trying to do it for a living. So I spent college kind of trying to see if there was something else I might be more suited to. And by the time I got out of Yale, I was sort of like, well, and I did theater all through that time too. And I kind of felt like, well, I haven't found anything else that I'm more adept in or that's more interesting to me. So I guess I'll go to New York and try it out. And if it doesn't work, then I'll, follow one of these other interesting things I've discovered during college and, become a vet or a journalist or a, whatever. And my early years in New York, I were a lot of waiting tables and, doing jobs that you got paid subway fare for if you're lucky.
Oh, I remember it well.
Yeah. But every time, when I would get to that point that most of us do, where you're like, should I be throwing in the towel? Should I be getting the hint now that it's time to give up? Something would always happen in just enough time for me to go, all right, well, I'll do this job, and I'll hang on this much longer. And then something would come up to keep me going.
Yeah, I'm with you. What came up for me were 2 national tours back to back. And,
right. Back when those kinds of things happened and you could put money away for some time afterwards.
Yeah, because I remember after the second one, I pretty much sat on the floor playing tiddlywinks for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, I'm a working actor. And
yeah,
it gets very depressing when that happens.
Yeah.
And I learned that when you leave New York for an extended period of time, when you come back, everything's changed and you pretty much have to start all over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and I would do that, even knowing that I would still do things like after Tommy in New York, my Broadway debut, rather than stay in town and sort of try to follow that up, I took a job doing Tommy in the first European production in Germany. And so lived in Germany for
2 years?
almost 2 years. So I did the show for about a year and a half and then just explored Europe for another 6 months. And I'm so glad I did, because when was I ever going to do that again? But yeah, I have not made the most savvy career choices, traditionally savvy career choices, but for me, they have seemed to work out in hindsight. Like they all kind of make this really varied, interesting, or psychotic kind of career in hindsight. But to me, it all makes sense and it all has its own logic. I've just pursued things that either really interested me or really scared me, and if I chose one of those things, it usually was something good for me and took me to some new place.
Was Bruce Bechtel one of those?
Yeah, because I didn't know Allison's graphic novel beforehand, so I didn't have like an investment in the project just from the source material, and nobody knew whether it was going to work. Nobody knew if you could turn this graphic novel that was so of its own self. Like nobody was quite sure how to do it. And we spent, I mean, before I came on, they'd already spent a couple of years, Janine and Lisa and Sam, trying to figure out what it wanted to be. And in the workshop, and then the first production of the public, and then the, restaging and reconfiguring for Broadway, we continued to work on it for the longest time. And up until the very first performances at the public, we were still really doing big changes and a lot of work on the fundamental structure of the show, and whole songs and scenes were coming and going. So it wasn't a guaranteed success. And even if we did manage to artistically capture the book in a musical theater form, that wasn't any guarantee that it was going to be commercially successul or popular among
Never
any of the groups that it
guaranteed.
might be popular to. Yeah. So, but I felt by the time we started previews, even in New York, that it didn't matter to me whether or not it was a commercial success. I felt so proud of what we had made, and I felt like it was a success, even if this was the only place it was going to get seen. So signing on to do it in the beginning, and also because Bruce was kind of the last character that they figured out, and part of why Janine and Lisa and Sam wanted me to do it, and Oscar Eustace, the head of the public, was because they wanted somebody to come in to help them by their work on it, help them figure out who Bruce was and how Bruce needed to function in the musical. So I felt like I was, as we all did, very much a part of the creative process of determining what that was going to be, which is very exciting, but it also means that you're signing on with a hope that you're going to figure it out. But there's not a lot on the page yet that's guarantees that.
But it worked. I mean, all right. I'm trying to remember if I've got this right. 4 nominations for Tony Awards?
4 wins. I think more. More nominations.
Did you win, Tommy?
Oh, you mean me personally?
You. I'm talking you.
6 nominations, 2 wins.
I have to tell you, your acceptance speeches for the best featured actor in a musical, as John Wilkes Booth in Assassins, which is another. You and Sondheim, boy, you've done. He's been good for you.
Yeah. Yes, he has.
But that acceptance speech, followed by your Funhouse acceptance speech, were 2 of the most beautiful acceptance speeches I have ever heard, because you didn't make it about you. You didn't make it about your agent or your whoever. You pretty much made it about your fellow nominees. And Funhouse may be more of your cast, but it was so gracious to the other people.
Thanks for saying so.
It was. I was unbelievably touched, and I don't usually get unbelievably touched by acceptance speeches. There are some funny ones. There are some ones that go on forever. Accepting from Puff Daddy. That's
yeah, that was amazing enough. But yeah, I think the most overwhelming emotion I had in those moments, both times, really was such gratitude, and such gratitude to be a part of this whole theatrical community, and grateful to be acknowledged. And I felt like what I kind of wanted to do in that moment more than anything else was share that with as many people as possible. And also I have I'm very clear about the, what awards mean. And And I have a difficult time really getting my head around the idea of competition in the arts in that way, like it's a sporting event. Um, and I'm very clear about the fact that part of the reason I think I may have won for the Assassin's year had as much to do with the fact that I lost in the Tommy year, and there were people back then who felt like, maybe I should have gotten it back then, and I've stuck around and I've kept doing it. And then Dennis O'Hare, who was brilliant also in Assassins, but had just won a Tony the year before. So I think there probably were people who were like, oh, well, so maybe the other kid could get one this time. So the idea that you somehow are the best actor that year or gave the best performance is ridiculous. And so acknowledging and giving credit to everybody else who just as easily could be standing up there, not to mention the hundreds of people who weren't even nominated, seemed like a good use of the very limited time that they give you.
Yeah, but you did. I mean, it was really, really beautiful. It was, I would put it up there as two of the top speeches I've ever seen given.
Nice.
So you did exactly what you wanted to do. Let's see. But here's the other thing that I found very interesting that I didn't really know before I did some research is you've done a lot of Shakespeare, non-musical but serious stuff. And, I know there's the thing that people don't expect musical theater actors to be doing the straight shows and vice versa. But, to do as much Shakespeare as you have done, and things like the regional theaters, like going out and doing Eastern Standard in Seattle with Tom Hulse, which I have an emotional attachment because I did Eastern Standard and I played Drew in that. So
no way. Wow.
Yeah, for a while I kept following Tom Hulse in roles. I played Amadeus and Mozart and
See that?
Drew, but for somebody who is known so well as a musical theater star, and you are, the other stuff is amazing.
Well, it's funny because a lot of the regional theater things happened, and a fair amount of the Shakespeare happened before Tommy. And Tommy was really the thing that began people thinking of me as a musical theater actor. I'd been around for a number of years before that, mostly not singing, mostly doing straight plays and Shakespeare, which was what I thought my whole career was going to be. When I left college, I thought, that's what I'm a straight dramatic actor. That's what I do. So Tommy was kind of the surprise at that time, but whatever people sort of first come to know you as, and a lot more people saw Tommy and heard about Tommy than ever saw any of my regional theater performances before that. For me, musical theater was the odd man out for a while. And after my, third or fourth Broadway musical, I finally had to start accepting that I suppose I am a musical theater actor also. And I don't know, I think generally, if you look at the chronology of my career, every time I do a big musical, then I look for a straight play or a television or film thing or something. I haven't generally followed up anything that I do with another thing that's like that. I usually try to follow it up, if I get to have any choice in the matter, with something that's very different and very challenging in a different way. And I think, obviously there are technical challenges that are different between straight plays and musicals, but fundamentally, I think I approach them the same way, and maybe it has something to do with the kinds of musicals that I am in. I mean, Sondheim sort of rewards Shakespeare-like seriousness and technical facility, and I think, I think that there's a lot of, with a good writer of a straight play, whether it's Tennessee Williams or even plays in translation, with good translators, there's a musicality and a rhythm to the language, even if it's not being sung, that is important to connect with and to use. And so it doesn't seem to me as wildly different as it looks from the other side of the footlights, as I'm sure you would know, and anybody who knows who's done both of those things. It's not playing different sports entirely.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I have to tell you, you were in the film Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant. That is one of my guilty pleasures. I am embarrassed. I love John Riley. I just love John.
It's a great movie.
And it's so much fun. So
it was just as much fun to make.
I have to admit, I consider that one of my guilty pleasures. But
well, we were supposed to make 3 of them. It was supposed to be a trilogy. There were 12 books that series was based on.
I remember there were a lot of books.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be a trilogy, and I was so sad that we didn't get to make the other ones, especially because Mr. Tiny becomes a bigger and bigger, force as the story goes along. But it was just so much fun to make. It was great fun. That was what introduced me to New Orleans. It took me down to New Orleans for the first time, where I now have a second home down there, and my band is based down there, and I spend a lot of time down there. But the cast was so terrific, and so much of it, unusual for today, was not done with digital effects. So much of it was prosthetics and was makeup and was kind of old school in that way. And I think it makes it a more human and engaging kind of thing, which might be part of why it's so fun for you to watch, because it's not just like watching a lot of computer graphics. It's watching actors and makeup craftspeople and a lot of that too. So
yeah, but it's what you all do with it as well. I mean,
yeah,
it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I had a blast.
Also brings me to I swear to you, I had forgotten that you played September in Fringe.
Oh yeah.
And during the COVID thing, we've all been binging, and Fringe had been one of my wife's and my favorite series. So we decided we were going to binge it. I think we did it over 3-4 days, the entire series.
That's serious binging.
We were doing serious binging.
Because that's like, that's network television kind of binging. So it's like 26 hours a season.
Exactly. All those seasons. And, I don't know how to, I am a science fiction geek. And you had a cast in that thing that was amazing. But this understated character that kind of comes out of nowhere and keeps reappearing. And the other actors who played the Watchers,
the other observers, yeah,
the observers, were not, while they did the understated bit like you did, there was something almost mystical in what you brought to September. And I've been dying to tell you that for a while.
Well, thanks. I love that character so much. And I got to have I think part of what you're putting your finger on is the fact that I got to have so much personal uh, investment in creating what September was and who he was from the beginning, not narratively, but from the beginning, it was kind of a blank page. I remember when I went in for my fittings for the first time, the wardrobe supervisor said, the costume designer said, "So, what does he wear?" And I was like, "Isn't that's sort of your job? I figured you would tell me that."
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, they gave us these instructions that he should be you." You should always recognize him, but you would never pick him out in a crowd. He's just sort of a faceless person in the crowd, but he's, always there. Um, so, and they had all these suits and all these coats and all these different things. So we just walked through them, and they said, what do you think? What period? What era? We're sort of thinking maybe 40s, maybe 60s, maybe 70s might stand out too much. So we went through, and I picked out this one nice dark blue suit that I liked, and thank goodness I did, because I was going to be wearing it for the next 6 years. So I'm glad it was something that I liked. And then she said, I've been wondering, do you think he wears a hat sometimes when he's out, or I don't know, and let's try some hats. So we tried a bunch of different hats, and I picked the fedora that I liked, and that became this iconic sort of image. And it's so cool to have been a part of establishing a character. There was some, 25 most iconic sci-fi characters in some reader's poll in a sci-fi magazine, and September was one of the characters. And as a famous Monsters of Filmland buyer when I was a kid, and a devoted sci-fi and horror fan, like being on that list was as exciting to me as winning a Tony Award. Like to get to
I get it.
to be part of an iconic thing like that. I think Fringe, I hope that a lot of people, I've heard from a number of people that they've discovered or rewatched Fringe over quarantine times, and I keep meaning to do that myself, because I was a devoted watcher of it, even though I was in it, because I loved it. And I want to go back and enjoy it all again too. But I really think it was, a sci-fi series for the ages. And what's really interesting, so many father and daughter pairs come up to me at after shows or various places and say, this was the one show that my dad and I could always agree on to watch. And I think it has to do with, it's a great sci-fi series, but it's also very much about fathers and sons, and and husbands and wives and daughters, and it's a very, very human story also. So it's got a little bit of everything.
Walter, my God,
yeah. I was just emailing with him today, with John Noble today. He's extraordinary. Everybody. Anna Torv, who I got to work with again then on Mindhunter, which was kind of a great little Fringe reunion for the two of us. And Josh Jackson was great. And I loved everything about it, including getting to go and hang out. And we shot, hey, Evie, come here. We shot the first season in New York, but then the rest of it was all in Vancouver. And I loved being in Vancouver as well.
Yeah, I love Canada. I keep looking for things get me to Toronto.
Well, these days, more and more.
These days, we're not going anywhere. But speaking of not going anywhere, we started with this, but the 90th birthday celebration that was Broadway World broadcast. The momentary glitches at the beginning notwithstanding, it was an amazing show. I'm still trying to figure out how the timing of the orchestrations, especially on the more elaborate songs, with the singing, the vocals, was done so beautifully.
Yeah, it's I think for the most part everybody was doing the same thing, which was Mary Mitchell Campbell, who was the music director, um, had recorded the musical beds beforehand, and when they were just piano accompaniments, that was, you know, fairly straightforward. But I think if there were other multi-instrumental things, she probably sent a piano track, and then people would sort of, well, for that whole opening sequence, I think there was a original piano part to a click track, and then each of the instrumentalists would record their part, and that was all mixed together. And so for the singers, we were sent the musical track, and then we listened to that. You see a lot of people with their earbuds and stuff in, and then just sang live to that, and then those two things were mixed together afterwards. But it was a whole big thing, and it's going to be released as a recording coming up fairly soon too. So yeah,
I will look forward to that, because
yeah.
that was, yeah, it's very funny. I started my career in musical theater and kind of went the other way, but I had a problem. I had a surgery a few years ago, and the anesthesiologist made a boo-boo, and he paralyzed my left vocal cord.
Oh no.
I could not talk for 9 months, and I've never gotten my full vocal range back. The fact that I can
think you're freezing here a little bit.
Ooh, yeah, that's the first time you've frozen. There you are. You're back. You're unfrozen.
There you are.
Okay. But yeah, so I didn't, for a while, I didn't know if I was going to have a career left, which was terrifying.
Yeah.
But, I've been dying to get back and do another musical, and I'm terrified to do it now because I don't have what I had before. And that's really scary.
Yeah, but the thing I've always felt, and I know Sondheim, feels this too. He's not as much of a technical genius as he is. He's first and foremost a theater person, and wants the story told and wants the character conveyed. A performance that's technically perfect but lacking in heart and soul is going to be much less interesting to him than something that's technically not perfection but has the rest of it. And I think, for me anyway, when I go to the theater, that's what I want to see. I don't need somebody with a flawless voice. I need somebody that I can believe in the story that I'm being told. So, I'd encourage you to, not let that worry stop you from doing everything you can. Yeah, exactly.
I was watching Zero Mostel do If I Were a Rich Man on YouTube the other day, because I just love watching, whatever I can. And, he was a horrible singer, technically, but the man was so funny, and so had so much heart and soul that it was amazing. And I did something I'd never done before. After I watched him do that, I watched Herschel Bernardi do it. And, Bernardi was much more of a singer. And I was like, I love Herschel Bernardi, but my God, Zero was so much better.
Yeah.
He was just, I understand what you mean, and I appreciate your saying it. I want to do a real flip here, because as much as I followed and watched and loved your career, you and I first communicated over, God help us, politics, which I think you're probably more calm or more of a centrist than I am. You're not volatile. Even when you were pissed off, you weren't volatile. which I admire because I'm just totally off rails. Now I saw something you posted the other day on Twitter, though, that you seem to be a little less
Oh,
calm.
I'm not incapable of being, volatile. And last night the debate pretty much, pushed me over the edge. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I recognize the fact that, and I think part of this is from growing up in a place like West Virginia, where I wasn't necessarily surrounded by people that all saw things the same way I did, even though West Virginia is a much more, there are many more progressive people in West Virginia than the state is generally, thought of as having.
Well, you were also in a university town.
Yeah, that's very true. And
Oh,
around, college kids, that's true. But, but I recognize that the only way that stuff ultimately gets done in a reliable, stable way ultimately is by getting more than just your side involved. And so, and when I feel my natural response to the rabid voices on the right and recognize my, how immediately I get turned off by that. And then how sometimes I can even hear some of people who I fundamentally agree with on the left, but who are expressing it in a way that I know is just going to be off-putting. It's like, I totally get it. And I know where that passion comes from. And I feel it myself, but I just don't know that that's going to actually, that probably feels better than solves the things that you want to solve. And I understand it and I feel it myself, but I feel like when I can control it, I'm serving myself and my community better because then I'm trying to do something to actually accomplish the goals rather than just, being as pissed off as I have a right to be. It's not that people aren't right to have those feelings, because God knows, they are, but it's not going to fundamentally solve anything, which is not to say that everybody needs to just get along and be patient and, because that we've passed that point, I'm afraid.
yeah. If we hadn't before last night, we certainly
Yeah.
would now, yeah.
Well, I've been, lately I have done so many, get out the vote and Evie, come here. Everybody needs to register, and everybody, and some of those things need to be bipartisan because, there's a fear that if you reveal yourself to be partisan, you can't, the argument to get out the vote is that everybody should vote. And I absolutely believe everybody should vote. I'm not, however, interested any longer in encouraging Republicans to vote. I only want to encourage Democrats to vote now, or, progressives or independents. But I absolutely think every Republican should vote, and they have a right to and a responsibility to, but I'm not going to spend any more time encouraging them to. I'm going to encourage Democrats and people not in favor of this administration to vote now.
That's why I had such admiration for what you were writing, because there was such rational thought behind it. I think I lost rational thought for myself 3.5 years or so ago.
Yeah. Well, you haven't seen all the ones that I deleted, or or did several drafts of before I ever posted them.
Well, you've lived in New York long enough, and I, as a native New Yorker, I tell people I watched Donald Trump for 40 years.
He told us who he was a long time ago, and
very long time.
We in New York have known all along.
Yeah, exactly. I said, when he said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, I said, no, that's the one place he couldn't get away with that because he would be attacked so quickly. It's, oh my God. So, but I could talk to you about theater, film, TV, and politics forever. But we cannot do it all. Yeah, and I left, you know what? I left out discussing two shows that really have to be discussed because one, I didn't know until I was researching it. I didn't realize that you'd done a revival of Evita.
Oh, yeah.
And that you'd done Juan Peron.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because if I was to think of a part you were going to play, I naturally would have thought of you as Che Guevara.
Well, then when I got the call to come and meet Michael Grandage to talk about it, I don't know if I guess I knew. I can't remember now whether I knew what the part was or not. But I think when I first heard it, I thought, oh, yeah, Che, I'd love to play Che. And I was like, yeah, that Ricky Martin's he's got that covered. And I wasn't, to be honest, all that interested in playing Peron at first. And it wasn't until I sat down with Michael and heard because I'd seen Patty and Bob Gunton and Mandy in the original.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't remember Peron all that much. And he really takes a back seat in those productions. And I was talking to Michael Grandage about how he saw the triangle of the three of them, and the three of them being equally important, and how the relationship between Ava and Juan was really the core of the show, which I realized was true once I started going through it. And so I became much more interested in it as I got deeper into it, and then getting to go to Buenos Aires and spend time with people from the Peron Museum and the talking to a lot of Argentinians for whom Juan and Eva Peron are very significant cultural figures and very thought of, very much beloved to this day.
They still are.
What's it?
They still are beloved.
Yeah. I mean, depending on which side of which lines you're on. But yeah. And as with a lot of complicated historical figures, they're very, very complex people. And a lot of what they, their stated intentions were, and their goals really were for the, their perception of what was best for the people. I think it's easy to make them these kind of two-dimensional props for whatever agenda you might be wanting to put forward. But I think in both cases, they were much more complicated than that. And the relationship between them was actually kind of beautiful in a lot of ways. So I was so grateful to get to be a part of that production. I was really proud to be part of a production that was bringing an audience to Broadway that traditionally didn't get to see representations of their stories on Broadway with performers who spoke their language. The irony being, of course, that there's no way now that I would be allowed to perform Peron, and that's probably right. It's we've started to understand the importance of representation and things differently now, and yes, 2/3 of the leads were Spanish-speaking, native Spanish speakers, but I think I think it's unlikely that I would be asked to play Peron, and probably wouldn't be the wisest thing for me to do, to play that kind of iconic
person.
Spanish-speaking character,
Yeah, I mean, hey,
nowadays.
we had a production of West Side Story, which was done in Spanish, so
Right.
at least the Spanish-speaking part.
Yeah. But I'm really happy that I worked very hard to earn and deserve my place in that company of that production with those actors by being as respectful and invested in immersing myself and brushing up my Spanish and educating myself and trying to be conscientious about it, because it very much felt like a real responsibility portraying that kind of figure for a global audience, and I was really happy with the kind of embrace that I felt from actual Argentinians. I mean, we were on the front pages of the newspapers in Buenos Aires for the production. It was a big deal in Argentina that an Argentinian woman was playing Evita and that it was being done in New York, and it was pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going backwards.
Yeah.
Because I told you we're going to go all over the place. I can't remember. Were you the first one to replace John Cameron Mitchell in Hedwig?
Yeah, in fact, I initially did it for a month because he just wanted to take a month off. He didn't have an understudy, and had been doing it for a while, and he was just exhausted. So he called and asked if I would think about stepping in, and I had never, I'd seen it 4 times and loved it, but never thought anybody but John would ever play it. So I said yes, and then immediately was sick to my stomach because I thought, there's no way I can do that. And I think what we all discovered, to John's relief more than anybody's, was that they had constructed this really well-made play in a way that it could be done without John in it. Like, nobody knew if it worked if it wasn't John initially. So I did it for a month, and then I went off on tour with Bob Mould, and John went back into the show. And then when he was kind of feeling by the end of that year that he wanted to just stop doing it altogether, he asked if I would take over. So I took over and did it the rest of the run. Well, not the whole run, in New York, and then went and opened the LA production and did the London production. So in the end, I ended up performing Hedwig more than John did over the years. But yeah, it was a comfort to everybody to discover that, oh no, we can actually have other people do this job, and John doesn't have to do every performance of Hedwig ever.
Yeah, no, and probably that helped make the last production feasible.
Yeah,
because knowing that he couldn't, but watching you, it's if you sit down and you watch your videos of you in the various characters you've played, from Hedwig through Tommy, assassins, all of it. It's just, there's no linear line. It's more like
yeah, that's true. In hindsight, I can trace a path that makes sense and how I got from that thing to this thing. And but from the other side, like looking at it as a young actor and sort of watching things sort of appear on the horizon and approach and get closer, it wasn't always clear. But I made, when I was able to have a choice, which so often as a young actor you don't. It's just like, there's this audition and you go in or you don't. But even from an early age, when I had no right to turn down any audition ever, I would turn auditions down if I knew it was just something that I couldn't care about. I knew that I would have to care about it. It didn't have to be great art. It could be, I could care about it because it was going to be really fun, or it was going to be working with this director I really wanted to work with, or, in a city that I really wanted to be in. But there had to be a reason for pursuing it. And like I said earlier, the reasons usually were, is it something I haven't done before? Because if I've already done it, it's not going to be very interesting. Or is it something that I'm not even sure that I can do, in which case I should really try to do that, because, I might fail
If it
miserably.
scares you
That would be
shitless,
interesting.
do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's true. I have a feeling the reason I felt such kinship to you is because you think about this very similarly to the way I do.
Yeah.
And you where you've had this chunk of your career that's a Stephen Sondheim based. I had a chunk of my career that's Neil Simon based,
Uh-huh.
where, my God, the man's responsible for half of my stage career.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, similar iconic figure.
yeah, exactly. So I really want to thank you for being here today and doing this. This is, for me, this is a thrill, because
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It's been really fun.
yeah, I've spent even with my friends in the entertainment industry, we've spent so much time talking about politics, as much, more so than what I really want to spend my time talking about, which is
Well,
creating.
I was just saying that to somebody a while ago, like early on in this, debacle of an administration, that like I don't want to have to pay that much attention to politics. When even some of the worst presidents we've had before this, there wasn't the feeling that we all had to be paying attention all the time, because if we didn't, horrible stuff was going to happen. I think there was a certain amount of rationality and a belief in that the checks and balances would work, that we felt like we can focus on the things that we want to care about, and let the people whose job and responsibility or interest is in keeping an eye on the government, they can do that, and I don't have to do it on the daily myself. And with this guy, you have to pay attention all the time, and it's exhausting, which is part of the point, and partly they just keep trying to wear us out, and we have to resist
Can't
it.
be worn out, not yet.
No.
No.
I look forward to a day when I can just not give a shit about politics anymore, because it's in good hands.
Amen, my friend. I agree completely. Thank you, Michael. This has been great, and
Thanks.
I'd love to do it again sometime.
Sure. Well, we might
We're
have
not
some
doing
time.
that much else.
Yeah.
What the hell? Okay. I will hopefully speak to you soon and see you in something wonderful soon.
That would be great, and vice versa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow. I mean, that, my friends, was a gift. Michael Cerveris. He is such a talented man. I am so thrilled to have been able to speak with him. And I hope you enjoyed it, because most of our conversation was not about politics. It was about theater and TV and film. So that's progress, folks. Now we're going to go backwards a little bit, and it's not going to be progress. Now, I realize that I have said in the past that because of who and what he is, I will not make the ignoramus in cheat the asshole of the week, because he's won every week. But I'm sorry, folks, this week I'm going to say the name. Donald J. Trump is my asshole of the week. we are less than 24 hours since the debate ended, and actually since it started. What a shit show. What a fucking shit show. And you know what's even worse? It's what happened afterwards, when you had all these mainstream media trying to do their usual false equivalency bullshit. Well, they both tried to talk over moderator Chris Wallace. No, excuse me. Twitler talked over Chris Wallace, and Twitler talked over Joe Biden. Joe Biden only talked over so that when it was his turn, he could get out what he had to say. Had Mr. Wallace been any kind of moderator, he would have shut Trump down and made sure Biden had the chance to have his say. He did not do that. I would like to recommend in the future something called a kill switch, which allows the moderator to turn off a microphone. In this case, it would be Trump's microphone, because that's the only way you're going to shut this son of a bitch up. I don't understand. He made up lie after lie after lie, and yet that false equivalency thing that the mainstream media seems to need to do is say, well, they both made stuff up. No. Biden got a couple of things wrong, but Trump lied. And then he lied some more, and then he lied some more, because he had nothing real to say. So he did what he always does. He lied. And had somebody been, checking him in real time and letting the audience know, it might have been a plus. But of course, they agreed not to do that. This has got to change. It really does. Why is Trump my asshole of the week when I've let him off the hook so many times before? Well, aside from last night, let's see. His recent anti-Semitic and racist rants, I think his comment regarding the Jewish people they're only in it for themselves. This was after having met with Jewish politicians, leaders. They're only in it for themselves. That goes so well with his racism towards blacks, Hispanics, and pretty much anybody who isn't lily white and in his family. I'm also choosing him because he claims to have a plan that will replace the Affordable Care Act. He hasn't got jack fucking shit. What he's got is this supposed plan that legally he really isn't entitled to make, in which Medicare recipients will receive a card good for $200 towards their prescriptions. That's what he intends to replace the ACA with. And maybe if the Democrats would stop calling it Obamacare, the people who are too stupid to understand that the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare are different things, or are the same thing, might stop comparing like they're different things. It's embarrassing. Also, he gets to become the asshole of the week for trying to shove through the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The woman has 3 years' experience as a judge, but she should be on the Supreme Court. Why? Because she is a right-wing religious fanatic who has made clear her views already. So how can that make her a nonpartisan jurist willing to hear both sides? No. What Amy Coney Barrett would like to do as a Supreme Court justice is take all the rights that somebody like Ruth Bader Ginsburg spent their life fighting for, so that she can be in a position to take those rights away from other women. So maybe we should share that asshole of the week, Amy Coney Barrett, with the man who nominated her, Mr. Twitler. Also, regarding the tax thing, okay, we've all heard about this. It's enough to make us sick. The reality is, what he said last night was a lie. He has not paid millions of dollars in taxes. If anything, he has gotten rebates or returns of millions of dollars in money from the federal government. But the most he's paid was $750. And before that, it was zero. And before that, it was zero. And before that, it was zero. You know, I understand the rich get breaks, but this is insane. And then he lies and says he paid millions of dollars in taxes. Well, my friends, he is full of shit. No, he didn't. And if you think that makes him smart to take advantage of the situation, just remember, you and I are paying for all the money that goes into his pocket. So let's try and use our brains, shall we? I don't know what else to say. It's been an incredibly bizarre week, and it's going to get more bizarre. So again, I'm grateful to have spoken to Michael Cerveris because I got to talk about theater and film and TV and the career of a very talented guy as opposed to the career of a narcissistic, psychotic, genocidal con man and crook. Oh, wait. You know what? Before I go, I promised a joke. Oop, I hit the mic again. I keep doing that. I promised a joke last week, and damn it, I'm going to deliver. So here it is. You know how you know when someone's a Trump supporter? They take their dog out for a walk, and both of them use the same tree. There it is, my joke. So that's our show for today. We've had some fun. I mean, talking to Michael was great. Some not so much fun because we had to deal with the politics of the day. But all in all, improvement because we got some laughs in. I actually told a joke. It may not have been a good joke, but it was a joke. So I hope you will come back and watch or listen to my next show. Bring friends. Tell them to subscribe. If you haven't yet, you subscribe. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, assuming you can, and see you next time on The World According to me, Yoni. Have fun.